Hi, I'm Patric Palm, CEO and founder of Favro, and this is the Learn from Leaders podcast. The background to this show is that Favro customers are some of the most innovative companies in the world. Enterprises wanting to be more agile, software as a service companies scaling fast, and game developers and publishers wanting to master live ops. So we get to know some truly inspiring leaders in product development, marketing, operations, sales, executive management. And what we do here is that we interview them about leadership so we can all learn from them. Let's go.
We are live. Hey Frank, how's it going?
Hi Patrick, nice to see you.
Very good seeing you again. We have a very special, podcast situation here with you because we're actually going to do 2 episodes. So, the first episode we're going to talk a little bit about, avoiding burnout, when building a fast-growing studio. But for the ones who doesn't know you, I mean, maybe we can start a little bit with your background. I mean, you have been at a lot of really cool studios, lately.
Thank you. Yes, I started about probably. I mean, I have my anniversary coming up 28 years ago, and I started in a distribution company in Germany, one of the 2 leading distribution companies by that time. That was the time actually when we still had, or when the Amiga, the SNES, and the Mega Drive still had some significant market share. And we still shipped by that time games on CD and on CD-ROM. And my role was a sort of a hybrid between QA, player support, evaluations, and localization. And then I transitioned in the same company, and then I was in a different company into a marketing role, into product management, and into brand management. And that was with my final destination, brand management, before I pivoted to production, was with ATARI Europe, and I was working on Superman. And then I switched into an external production role, and then after that, an internal production role in a different company. And after that, I founded my own company. I thought I knew everything and became an entrepreneur. Built a publishing and production services company. This I did for about 8 years. And then I had to close down the company because of the economic situation. I did a lot of mistakes by that time. And then I became back employed by one of my key clients, Gameforge, where I became an operations director. And then I transitioned after a few while changed jobs into an craft lead and senior producer at Ubisoft, and have been there for a while. And after a few years, I joined Riot Games, where I think stayed 7 years in a few months, and I had several, let's say, roles inside of that company, not just one project. I had multiple projects, multiple things to do. And then I joined, or I basically was contacted by Embark in Sweden, which I was working with for a few months. And then I started at Mythical Games, where I'm right now serving as a VP of developer operations. And Mythical, for those who don't know, is a platform and technology company which does also games in the blockchain space.
Quite a career, I'm super happy to have you on the podcast. I mean, the theme of this podcast is learning from leaders, and you've been in so many leadership positions. So you've been gathering, you've been collecting quite a few experiences and learnings over the years, and that's what we're going to talk about today. So the theme for for part 1 here is how do you avoid burnout in a fast-growing studio. And I think this is a very relevant topic. I was at the DICE conference recently in Vegas, and I'm almost surprised that we're still talking so much about how do we avoid crunch, how do we make work-life balance actually work. I think it's probably better today than it was when back when we started in the industry, but it's still a very kind of top of mind topic. So why don't you mean, I know you have a lot of thoughts around this, so I don't want to steer too much. If you would, we got GDC coming up now. If you would do like a GDC talk about avoiding burnout and in a fast growing studio, what would be the the kind of main points you would like to make?
First of all, for me, burnout is real. It's not really like a myth or only a few people are affected by it. And I believe if someone has burnout, it's already too late. But contributors to burnout is stress. And we as leaders, but also we as employees and individual contributors, we can prevent, or at least, in my opinion, we can try to manage stress better. And I'm doing this not because I saw this from the pure distance. I'm doing this also because I have been affected myself with stress and with burnout. In my entire career, I think if I reflect a little bit with the knowledge I have today, I think I had several situations where I was on the brink of burnout, or where I was basically, I would say I had a couple of meltdowns, so to say. But most recently, I think about 3 years ago, I really suddenly, with the knowledge again of today, I knew now that I had a serious burnout, which made me to do irrational decisions, which made me also to ask myself about what should I do, and how can I get help, and how can someone else help me? And right now, with this, now reflection back, I think we as leaders, we can really, really help to reduce the stress on people and that they get into burnout. And I'm not, the cause for burnout was, for me and for many other situations I witnessed, this was not because of overwork, crunch. I think this is all behind us. It's more about, in a fast growing environment, right? You have, you pivot constantly, you change your goals, you change direction because you have to stay competitive. But sometimes you forget about bringing the people along with you, and you forget about what it does. Constant change causes stress, and stress factors are not from work, but they're also from private life. And if they meet, it can have a tremendous effect on people. And I think we need all to be aware of that. We need to be kind to each other. We need to look out for each other.
I think the point you're making about that stress factors comes from more places than work is very true. I remember listening to a professor, psychology professor, some years ago, and he said something quite interesting. He said that he wanted to forbid having family photos at the office. Like the family office, the family picture on your desk, and his argumentation for that was that sometimes in life, things are tough at work, but you have the support from home, and sometimes things are tough at home, but you kind of have a foundation being in what you do at work. But if you have a situation where it's tough at home, and it's tough at work, and when you are at work, you're looking at this family picture and you get reminded about that it's also tough at home, it's totally going to burn you out. So he said, no more family pictures on the office desk.
I like this concept. Let's say I'll put it that way. A few years back, I believed in that concept. You go to work, you go home, and then the two different worlds, right? But in this environment that we have right now, with Slack is good and evil. But this constant, let's say, being connected with the company. Plus, we are now in a situation where I think many companies are in this hybrid world. That means you work from home at 1 or 2 days a week, and then you go to work. But you still, while you're at home, you're still at work. So it mingles, it merges. And this is, I think, becoming a really stress factor. And I can, again, relate only or share with you my story a bit. And this is when, when I started to really burn out or to start really to feel the stress, is like when you don't find time to make your own meal, when you schedule your let's say your drinking behavior, your bio breaks around meetings. This is really, really bad. And particularly when you basically give up your private life for that. And then the other hand is like, when you were you miss out on a lot of, let's say, social connections, right? When you are at work or at home, someone comes in your door, and then it's like it disrupts you and it puts you out of the zone, so to say. You have to do not only, let's say, the typical context switching, which you do at work, then you have additional context from your family, and not always is fine. Like, for instance, I mean, of course, the pandemic is over, but we don't know when the next come in. But during the pandemic, like when I learned that there were shops were closing, my least concern was work, but we had trouble at work. So that's what I mean. That's so stressful, and then things don't go the way they are supposed to go the way. And if this continuously happens, then it's really building stress. And I believe, even besides, let's say, pandemic, and let's say that we have now a hybrid world, I think we as leaders, we can contribute to make it a little bit better on the people who work with, who we work for, but also the people we are working together and collaborate. And there are many. I think at least I developed a little bit of a scheme, or let's say a checklist of things which I try not to do. I fail sometimes, but there are things I think we certainly can do better.
So let me try a classic kind of retrospective question on you. Like what shall we continue doing? What we learned during COVID. What shall we stop doing, and what shall we start doing? Do you have a few on each of those?
Yeah, I have. Let's talk maybe focus on the one we should continue doing, and maybe even more. And this is one thing I feel like it's very important. It's like checking on each other, asking how someone feels when you have your one-to-one. Don't start with work, or I say one-to-one. I mean the co-worker relationship, not the manager. We talk about the manager in a moment, but just the co-worker. Ask how someone feels, and talk a bit about how his day is, how he's doing. Does he need help? Check in and be kind. You can do this actively basis. If you see someone, I mean, like I've heard something that the most, I think 90% is non-verbal communication. And that means look when you have a Zoom call, have a look at who is in your Zoom call. Don't focus just on the presenter. Look how the others in your team are doing. And maybe after the call, you can reach out and ask, how did you feel? I sensed maybe a little bit of, confusion there or whatever, like just be observative. And this is what I would do more. What I would be stopped doing is these timed meetings, like meeting after meeting after meeting. This is really, really hard. While when I was on site, it was normal you end the meeting, you go to the next meeting, and while you go to the meeting, you pick up the coffee, you have a chat. The meeting started maybe a few minutes late, but you still had some social interactions. You had time to go to do your bio break, whatever. But if I look in the beginning of the pandemic, if I look at my meeting calendar, it was meeting after meeting after meeting after meeting, but even a minute break in there. And you know how it is, and if meetings are not very well designed, they always end on time. I've seldomly seen meetings who end before they're supposed to end. That's I think we should stop doing. The same as lengthy meetings. Like really, I don't see the need for having a 4-hour workshop. Why not doing 2 pieces of 2 hours and have a time in between where people can reflect, can refresh, and come back to the meeting. I'm not talking about, let's say, just remote meetings, but journaling meetings. Like meetings are I think the most stress factors. I mean, like not everyone is, I would say, good at conversations. I'm personally get stressed out in conversations. It exhausts me. So I need the break. And I believe I'm not the only person in the world who has this. And what I would start doing is like really being mindful and show empathy to people, people's situations. Like when I was way back in Germany, I mean, let's say private life didn't have a place in the workspace, but now we should consider private life. Nobody on your team wakes up to be, let's say, to show a bad performance, to have a bad mood. Something happens affected her or him, and we should respect that. We should try maybe to reach out and to understand why this person is that way, having maybe a nice conversation and maybe complimenting each other and giving positive encouragements. And what I would stop doing also is like the trust thing, like people have their own schedule and sometimes they have to adjust their schedule to their daily life. Trust them that they deliver or that they are keeping up their commitments, but let them organize the day how they need it to be organized.
Thank you. That's a lot of very concrete advice, and I like that you were playing along with with the retrospective model there.
Perfect.
Now, if I can go a little bit more, let's say, personal. You are in a management position yourself. What are these things do you find to be hard? Sometimes you might have an insight into how you should do something, but it might still be very hard. When you're trying to apply your learnings yourself, what do you find to be the challenges in succeeding with executing the learnings that you have?
First of all, I think one of the things I struggle with is I know if you let's say work on a team, you manage up, you manage down, right? And the upper management, the business itself, needs to or not needs to, but has an impact on how you work. And sometimes there is no time, like sometimes time is the essence, right? When I say the essence means you have to make quick decisions sometimes, and you have to pivot very hard sometimes. And this is something where where you don't have the very luxury to let's say to do all these things which I just described. But I think you can still go back to the basics of be kind and try to explain also the why of things, and try to take people with you. And if you feel someone is not with you, move forward, but take maybe the person and have a one-to-one or coach this person to get along with the others, and making him or her comfortable about the change, the reasons why we do things. I've seen, I think just recently, not just recently, but a lot of times where people worked on their unclear goals, and they know a change was coming and they haven't been communicated well. There was chatter on the floors, and when I say floors, I mean Slack or actual floors. But the thing is, like, we should make sure, as a minimum, that people understand why we do certain things. Take the time for the why, and this I'm trying to do always, and offer the time also to reflect. Like people, when you express, let's say, a change, or you mandate a change, have an open ear for everyone. Make sure that they can reach out to you, be available. That's, I think, a thing that's I never compromise on.
That's very insightful. And I have a final question on that. How often, when I listen to someone talking about, the why, sometimes repetition comes up, that you have to be consistent, and you have to accept that you might have to repeat a message many times. I think personally I struggle with this. I'm like, well, hey, I said it once.
Yeah.
And do you have any tips to me and other people in this position of having to explain the why? How is it simply just making sure that you're consistent and repeat, or the other advice that you can give, how to make sure that this message lands?
There's I would say no silver bullet to that. But what I'm trying to do is, like, if the message doesn't come across, I rephrase it, and I will restate it, and I will reshare it and make it visible to everyone. But on the other hand, let's say if you have a new goal or whatever, I would make it maybe part of the meeting, like looking at the goal. This is the goal for that whatever particular milestone, that quarter, that year. and how are we doing, and is everyone still aligned with that? Maybe with a different phrasing, but just what I want to say is like trying to calibrate, so to say, all together on this goal. And if this goal or let's say the reason why we do certain things not clear, paraphrase it, make it a little bit, let's say, break it a bit more down into behaviors or into small sub reasons or small sub things which contribute to that. But trying, let's say, if you see it, like I've seen, let's say, that way, I've seen situations where leaders presented a presentation and they were expecting the team to execute, and then when questions came up, the third answer was, it's all in the presentation, they should look at the presentation. Wrong answer, in my opinion. I would say, okay, what isn't clear? Let's have another session. Either, let's say, with the people who feel like it's not clear to them and maybe record a session, or all the team together to realign and recalibrate on that particular goal and the whys, right? The thing is, I think while goals can change, the whys usually don't change.
And that's great. Thank you so much, and I'm really looking forward to the second part of our conversation. So if you like this, check out part 2, with Frank Fay.
I hope you enjoyed this conversation. If you did, you know what to do. Share it in your social media so more people can take part and learn. And one more thing, check out Favro Academy on favro.com for many more learnings. Thanks for tuning in.